Welcome to this live science class. Um, we want to talk about consumption of sugar does not cause diabetes. Against popular opinion that so many people think that consumption of sugar automatically results to diabetes. We want to see the causes of diabetes and then the scientific explanation of what happens to the glucose level in the body. First and foremost, let's look at what diabetes is all about. Diabetes is a chronic metabolic disease that is majorly characterized by the elevation of uh, glucose in the blood. And this always lead to severe damage to kidneys, the heart, and some other organs and tissue over time in the body. Now, all over the world, we have about 500 million people that is actually living with diabetes. And you will agree with me that this particular value is on the high side. Now, it has been projected that the number of people that is living with diabetes is going to be more than double in the next 30 years. Approximately, we have 1.3 billion that have been gotten through that projection. And there has been reports of increase in every country of those living with diabetes. Diabetes accounts for about 1.5 million of deaths annually globally. We have different types of diabetes. We have the type 1 diabetes, we have the type 2 diabetes, we have the gestational diabetes, we have the latent autoimmune diabetes in adults, we have the maturity onset diabetes of the young, we have the neonatal diabetes, we have the steroid-induced diabetes. However, we know that the two common ones are the type 1 and the type 2 diabetics, and probably gestational diabetes. But let us look at type 1 diabetes, for example. Under type 1 diabetes, we have two types of diabetes. We have the type 1A and the type 1B. The type 1A diabetes is immune-mediated kind of diabetes, while the type 1B is non-immune mediated type of diabetes. The type 1B, although is rare, but it has been known that there is no production of insulin. However, there is no evidence of autoimmunity when it comes to the type 1B. But the exact cause of it has not been fully resolved or known. But in type 1B, we have low or no production of insulin. But for the purpose of this class, we want to talk about the type 1A, that means the immune-mediated diabetes, for you to see that it's not just about taking sugar that leads to diabetes or hyperglycemia, so to say. Now, let's look at this. The normal metabolism of carbohydrate is that when you get a sugar source, probably from carbohydrates, and of course, you know that when we talk about sugar here, people just think that, oh, probably it's just the sweet things that you get from a soft drink. No, it goes beyond that. When you take carbohydrate food, you're also taking sugar because they will be digested and be broken down to glucose in the body. And so this glucose, after being broken down, or you took them directly into the body, we actually move into the blood, to the blood cells, and then they will be there, they will be circulating. So the glucose are actually meant to be kept at a certain level in the blood. And so when you have some glucose in the blood, some of them migrates to the cell, where through glycolysis and other pathways, they produce ATPs. However, when there is increase in that level in the blood, the pancreas, through the beta cells, produces insulin. And this insulin helps to, number one, helps to enhance the intake of the glucose into the cells. And number two, what it does is that it helps to convert glucose into glycogen. And so when it converts this glucose into glycogen, they are now being stored in various cells of the body, like the fatty cells, the liver, and the muscle. So that is how glucose is being stored. And whenever the body needs energy again, the stored glucose in form of glycogen, they are being mobilized back, and then ATP is being generated. But for type 1 diabetes, let's look at what happens. Okay, now if we start from the source of sugar or carbohydrate has been taken, okay, and there's digestion of carbohydrate being broken down into glucose, and then the glucose now finds their way into the blood, and so you now have the glucose gets accumulated. They begin to get accumulated inside the blood. So if nothing happens at that time, you have what we call the hyperglycemia. That means you have high level of glucose inside the blood. Now, what actually causes this? Now, one of the major genes that have been implicated in type 1A diabetes, okay, is found on chromosome 6. And at this portion, it produces the HLA gene, which is known as the human leukocyte antigen gene. And this produces the HLA-DR2 and the HLA-DR3. Now, these two goes ahead to produce the anti-isolate cell antigen, and it also goes ahead to produce the anti-GAD antigen, and also we also have the anti-ZNTB antigen. These three, they are auto antibodies. Okay, they are auto antibodies, and you know that the normal function of the HLA gene is actually to produce surface proteins that are actually meant to tag foreign bodies or antigens, so that the antibodies in the system will be able to destroy them. But in this particular case, is producing an auto antibodies, and what these particular antibodies, what they do is that now, because we have elevation of glucose in the blood, the pancreas normally we want to produce the beta cells, but the autoantibodies now is going to destroy the beta cells. And when it destroys the beta cells, definitely there will be no production of insulin. And if there is no production of insulin or minimal production of insulin, the insulin will not be available to convert the glucose in the body to glycogen, or will not even aid them in entering into the cell where they are needed for other purposes. So there will now be accumulation of that glucose in the body. 50% of those people with type 1A diabetes are actually as a result of this particular mechanism I've just described as the HLA mechanism. So we have different symptoms associated with type 1 diabetes. We have what we call the glucosuria. This is when we have a high glucose in the urine. We also have what we call the polydipsia. Polydipsia is excessively thirsty. When somebody becomes excessively thirsty, it could be symptom of the type 1 diabetes. And we also have the polyphagia, which is excessive eating. You know, these are some of the symptoms that can actually come from type 1 diabetes. Thank you very much for watching. I want you to subscribe, like, and share this video, and also make comments. Thank you very much.